I'm going to share my screen now. So this is what the attendance certification form looks like. So it's pretty simple, or it's meant to be simple. So if you're kind of going through and if you ever notice that like it seems a little wonky or it's not intuitive, please let me know, because this is something that we at Campus Compact like oversee this process, this form, so we can make edits to it and how it's kind of like functioning. So we're always looking for feedback. So for the certification form, you're going to start off by providing your name and email at the top. We do have it set up so that, like, let's say you as a site supervisor are out of the office for whatever reason, someone else can submit this on your behalf. It's really important that that person is a staff member and not your VISTA member, and not just like a random volunteer with your organization. It has to be a staff person with your organization, but they can complete it. So if that person were to be completing it on your behalf, they would just click yes for this second question, and then it prompts them to then provide your information as the site supervisor. So that's how it works. In any instance where I've had to work with supervisors on that, I just send over the instructions to that person if the supervisor for whatever reason is unable to, and it seems to have worked fairly simply and fairly well. So we don't really, I don't anticipate a lot of issues, but we do have that function for you as an option. Then you're going to select your program, which it's already there. So you're in the VISTA program. We do have a summer VISTA program, so just make sure that you are in the VISTA program and not summer VISTA. Then you're going to select your organization. So go through the list. They are in alphabetical order, or they should be. If for whatever reason you don't see yours here, that's just a error on my end. So I greatly apologize, but they should all be there. I double checked this morning. So select your organization. Then you're going to select your VISTA member. Again, they should all be there. They're in alphabetical order by first name. So you can just go through, select your member, then you're good to go. And again, please make sure that you are double checking, because if you submit for the wrong member or like the wrong organization, I'll have to reach out to you and ask you to resubmit, just so that we have the official certification and all the information is accurate. So just make sure you're double checking, because sometimes with the drop down menus, if you do the scroll thing on your mouse, then yeah, we understand. Okay, so then you're going to first provide the attendance certification. So this is where you are just saying that my VISTA member has been actively serving in the VISTA program for this pay period. So you're going to select the correct pay period, which is just this first one, so June 30th through July 13th, 2019. And then you're going to select, so this is where it gets a little confusing, especially for the first time. So if you had a VISTA member who started on Monday, July 8th, you're going to select no. And the reason you're going to select no is because they were not actively serving, so they were not in the VISTA program for that entire 2-week period. So you're going to select no, and then you're going to provide the dates that they were actively serving. So that would be July 8th, 2019 through July 13th, 2019, because July 13th is the end of the pay period and they started on July 8th, okay? So if your member started on the 9th because they, continued into a second term, you'll just select yes. Normally, you will always select yes because they will have been actively serving in the program during that time. So this gets a little bit confusing too, because you have to provide the reason. And so if your member started Monday, you provided the correct dates, then you're going to just put in there that your VISTA member's term started on Monday, July 8th, 2019. That's all we need, but that's just kind of our way of verifying. So this can be confusing because let's say your member, used a day, like they took a sick day or even like a few hours of their personal leave. They are using some of their leave benefits, or this, obviously might include some days like over the weekend that they just weren't serving with your organization. You're always going to select yes. You're mostly always going to select yes. if they were serving for the full time, even if they took like a day off or, you know, it was over the weekend, because this is really, VISTA cares about knowing that they were an active participant in the program. We track leave a different way, so just know that that's why we do it that way. Can be confusing, so understand that. The second part of this is the leave certification. So for any leave benefits, again, through VISTA, your AmeriCorps member receives 10 personal days and 10 medical days. Medical days can be personal, like health days or things like that, so don't get caught up on like you have to have a doctor's note. It's whatever you're using internally at your organization's, you know, whatever your code of conduct says or your policy says around time approval, that's what you should be using for this information. We just track what those days are because that is a benefit directly through VISTA. And let's say your VISTA member were to use all of their medical leave and then they had a medical emergency, we would have to show our program officer and that we had documented all of their medical leave was already used, and then they could request emergency leave. So that's why we have this process in place, but you can track it by the day or by the hour. So just note that if your VISTA member just started in July, so they started July 8th, they should not be using any leave for the first 3 months. So until October, sorry. They shouldn't use any leave. Of course, we are humans and things happen, so just be sure that you're documenting all of that. You know, if they, you know, had to go to the hospital for whatever reason, or they're just, you know, can't come in and you're okay with that and you approve it, that's fine. So if they are using any time off, so let's say you put a number here other than 0, then you should provide some documentation for the approval of that time off. And so there is no official form that we have. I can give you like an example from what we use like locally with Campus Compact, but otherwise just feel free to use whatever process you use with your organization or whatever your policies are there locally. But this is just, again, our way of if CNCS ever comes to us and says, you know, your VISTA took, you know, more leave time than they should have and they're requesting additional time, like how can we verify that the supervisor approved all of this time off? This is where we would come and show them, like, look, this is the approval that was provided, the documentation that we have for that leave that was taken. So what this means is that sometimes, you know, especially if a VISTA member is just not feeling well and you have it set up with them that they can just text you and say, hey, I'm not coming in today. That's totally fine. Again, whatever you prefer as the supervisor or whatever your policy states with your organization. But especially in a texting situation, we'll just want you to follow up with them via email. And then you could just include like a PDF version of the email where you state that, you know, you approved the specific day off for the specific reason. And so it's not just kind of existing in like a screenshot. It should be a PDF or a Word doc or something like that. That's all that this is meaning. Don't feel like you have to include something, especially if they're not using any leave time, you shouldn't. But if you are documenting leave time, you should be including some kind of documentation, but don't feel like you have to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. It should hopefully just be in alignment with whatever you're doing locally to track and approve that time off. If you have any specific questions, just let me know, but it's not meant to be a huge burden. It's just meant to be our way of officially documenting and demonstrating really that you as a supervisor have approved your VISTA member's time off. And then the final piece of this is just the certification. So this is basically serving as your electronic signature. And so you're just going to click that you certified the information that you provided is accurate. And then if you have any other questions or comments or notes that you want to share about what's happening or what, you know, is going on with the time off or things like that, feel free to put those in there in this as well. Like sometimes our supervisors will say, oh, you know, I've said that they use 10 hours of personal time and, you know, that's broken down this way. And that's not something that we necessarily need to track, but sometimes it's helpful for you as a supervisor to know like, oh, yes, I already shared that for this time period that we did document it. So that's what you could do there, as well as just ask questions. And then you're going to submit it. So since you provided your email at the top, when you submit it, it will send you a summary report of what you submitted. So you'll have it for your records, and then it automatically, of course, sends something to us at Campus Compact saying that you've submitted something. So that's how we'll know that you submitted and what you submitted. And then that's, again, if I notice that there are any errors, especially for this first one, if your VISTA member started on July 8th, I might be reaching out to you if I notice that you didn't, that you selected that, yes, they were actively serving for the entire time and you didn't provide that follow-up information. So again, just make sure you're double checking everything. But hopefully this seems fairly simple, intuitive. If you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. But that is always our intention, that it's not a huge burden for you to do this, but we do have to have this documentation for the Corporation and for National Community Service as a way of just demonstrating that we are keeping track of our members actively serving and their leave benefits. So that is all I have. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll stop sharing and stop recording.